everybody, this is Rick Prokop and welcome back to Piano Power Lessons. We're going to carry on today playing Hands Together with Musicland. For those of you who are new to the site, I just want to make you aware that there are units of study, and if you go to the playlist, you'll see Unit 1, Major Scales, and I would suggest at least do the first couple of lessons there so you understand what a major scale is and you know C major backwards and forwards, because the first 5 pieces that we do in John Thompson are going to be in the key of C major. And then you want to take a look at Unit 3, which deals with triads. For example, CEG is a C major triad, and you'd be way ahead of the game if you knew that already. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is for you to know all of these theoretical things, scales, intervals, triads, if you're dealing with written music. Otherwise, you're going to be stymied all along the way. So enough about that stuff. Let's go on and see what are some good techniques for learning how to play with both hands. So the first thing you want to do is put in fingerings for all of the notes on the page. And you can see that there's a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 1, and a 2, and a 4, and those correspond to your various fingers, thumb being 1, 2, 3, 4, and pinky being your 5th finger. As a rule, I like to have all of the numbers above the notes. So I would redraw the numbers in the left hand so that they're above the notes. So you're always looking to the same place to find the fingering, right above the note. And there we have it. The next thing you want to be able to do is read any of these vertically aligned notes very quickly and easily from the bottom up. So whenever you have 2 notes vertically aligned, it's called an interval. And an interval is a space of all the notes between and including the 2 outer notes. In this case, we have a C to an E, which is 2 notes wider than an octave, which is 8 notes. So C to E is called a tenth. E to G is another tenth, because E up to the E line here is an octave, that's 8, and then you have the F and the G making it a distance of 10 notes. Then we have G to D, which is a perfect fifth, and we're back to the CE tenth. So I'd like you to join me in reading each one of these intervals 3 times really fast from the bottom up. Okay, ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. CE, CE, CE. Let's go on to here. Now we have EG. Ready? EG, EG, EG. And you want to look at the notes in question, because these are the notes you're dealing with. These are the notes you're going to play. All right, now we have GD. Ready? GD, GD, GD. And then CE again, CE, CE, CE. All right, let's do it one more time. Ready? Here we go. CE, 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 EG, 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 GD, 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 CE, CE, CE. Let's take a look at the bottom line. We have the CE tenth. We have the same EG tenth that we had up here. And now we have a new interval called a sixth. This is an F to a D, which is 6 notes apart. And they're very pleasing sounding intervals, the sixth. And then G to E, which is another sixth, it's very pleasing, and then E and C. All right, let's try reading the bottom staff here. Same way we did the top staff. So we have C, E, E, G, F, D, G, E, E, C. So let's do each one 3 times really quickly. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. C, E, C, E, C, E. Now, E, G, E, G, E, G. Now here comes F, D, F, D, F, D, F, D. Here comes G, E, G, E, G, E, G, E. And here comes E, C, E, C, E, C, E, C. So reading intervals is kind of like reading English. So you see the word phrase here. And if you couldn't read that well, you'd say, let's see, P-H, A-S-E, and you'd have to go over each letter. But as a word, you just say phrase. Well, it's the same thing with intervals. You just go C, E, G. All right, okay. Let's see if we can go right through them. This, 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 and this. Just one shot for each one. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Here we go. C, E, E, G, F, D, G, E, E, C. All right, the next thing we're going to do is go to the piano. Hopefully you have your keyboard right there. And place your pinky on the C below middle C and your 3rd finger on E above middle C and play them together. And hold them for 4 beats and then do it again. Get a sense for how 5-3 feels like, how the 10th C to E sounds. Then you might want to just say to yourself as you're doing it and looking at the sheet, C, E, or 5-3. That's why we numbered all of the notes, 5-3, or C-E, okay? All right, let's go to the next measure and play E-G together. So you have your middle finger and the left hand on E and pinky on G up here in the right hand. Let's just play those together. 1, 2, 3, here we go. E and G together. And look at the music as you're doing that and say E-G, read from the bottom up. E-G. Also notice that you have 3-5, so you can say that, 3-5. You want to get used to associating these numbers over the notes with your fingers at various places on the keyboard. All right, next you have the G with your thumb and the D with your index finger. Let's try that together. 1, 2, 3, here we go. G, D. Let's do it again. G, D. And then you could say 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay, 1, 2. And then, of course, you finish out with what you began with, the C-E. So you play that again. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to see if I can go through that first line just playing the synchronized notes, those intervals that we looked at, just by themselves. And we'll give each one 4 beats. First time through, let's say the letter names. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, E, 2. Now here comes E, G. E, G. Here comes G, D. And here comes C, E again. Okay. Let's do the same thing with numbers. We'll say 5-3, 3-5, etc. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5-3. Now 3-5. And 1-2. and 5-3. All right, moving down to the second staff, the first two measures is just a reiteration of the first two measures up here. So let's go over here and practice these sixths. So put your index finger in the left hand on F and index finger of your right hand on D. And then just say FD, FD, FD. And then thumb on G, third finger on E, and that's GE. Ready? 2, 3, 4. GE. And again, GE. 2, 3. And again, GE. And you want to get a feel for how this feels physically. And you're playing these two notes and you're bouncing both wrists at the same time. I'll show you at the end what it looks like. Okay, and your final interval of the sixth, you have a 3 on E, thumb on C. Ready? Play those together and say them. EC, 2, 3, and again, EC, 2, 3, and again, EC, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's play these three intervals and practice saying the numbers of the fingers. All right, so F and D with our index fingers, we're going to say 2, 2, 2, 2. I'm reading from the bottom up, 2, 2. For the next one, we have 1, 3, GE, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. And you got to drill this into your brain. So when you see 1, 3, you know it's left hand is 1, right hand is 3. All right, you just got to do it a lot. All right, and the last one, 3, 1. EC. That's 3, 1. 3, 1. 3, 1. All right, now we're going to try to get from here to here to here to here to here, saying the letter names going up. Let's do that. And we're going to do that as we're playing. So let's put C with your pinky in the left hand, and then E with your middle finger in the right hand, and let's try to go all the way through. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. CE. Now here comes EG. EG. 2. Here comes FD. FD. Now GE. GE. And EC. EC. Try that again. I'm not going to cue you this time. See if you can do it on your own. Start with CE. 1, 2, 3, go. Say the letters. Say the next two letters. Play them. Say the next two letters. Play them. Next two letters. Play them. Next two letters. Play them. If you did that, very nice. If you didn't, try it again. All right, let's go straight through again, doing the same thing. Let's say the numbers go on up. So it'll be 5, 3, 3, 5, 2, 2, 1, 3, 3, 1. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. 5, 3 comes 3, 5. 3, 5 comes 2, 2. 2, 2, and 1, 3. 1, 3. 3, 1, 2, 3, and off. All right, now take a look at what I'm going to do as I'm playing these intervals and the notes and exactly synchronizing the notes of the intervals. So what you try to do when you're playing with both hands is to get the wrist to do exactly the same thing as much of the time as you can, all right? So we'll try this first time without the metronome on. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. See both wrists bouncing. Now 1, 2. And now 5, 3. Now watch this. 2, 3. Both wrists come off at the same time. You see, they do exactly the same thing. So that last interval, 1, 2, 3, and off. Then we resume on the second line. And 3 and 5. Then F and D. And watch, both hands come off from the wrists and the fingers are just hanging there. You're like a dog, I call it. Do the dog. That's how you float off the keyboard, like this. Okay, and the fingers follow the wrists, and if the wrists are high, the fingers are pointing down. That's an indication that you've gotten off correctly. All right, let's try it with the metronome on 66. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. And off, down, bounce, bounce, bounce. Get a good sound. That's the gist of it. Now all we have to do is add those connecting notes, which we'll do in the next lesson, and I'll show you 1 or 2 more techniques along the way as you do that. So with that, I just want to thank you for joining me again, and we'll see you next time.